Hi, my name is Matt Sesko, and today we're going to be actually watching a virtual air show. So, since air shows are canceled for this year, sadly, I figured I'd pull a virtual air show out of the archive, and the lead aircraft for the video will be a B-17 Flying Fortress, a C-47 Dakota, or Skytrain, and also a B-25 Mitchell. So the lead B-17 is actually the Yankee Lady by the Yankee Air Museum. The B-25 is actually Miss Hap, General Hap Arnold's personal transport, and that is actually owned by the American Air Power Museum. And the C-47 is actually on display in the Airborne Museum in Saint-Mère-Église, France. So the B-17 that you're seeing on your screen now is actually the 447th Bomb Group, and they were actually in England from 43 to 45. This is actually one of their most famous B-17s, along with probably another one that everyone will know. This one is Obidalace. It survived the war, and it went back to the U.S. in 46 and actually was sadly scrapped. It's actually a beautiful nose art. Another one of the 447th Bomb Group famous B-17s would be, of course, Fuddy Duddy, which is actually on display in the Lyon Airport at the it's the John Wayne Airport. It's the Lyon Air Museum. Excuse me. Sorry for the mistake there. The Fuddy Duddy is actually currently not flying. There are some issues with the aircraft. It does need some restoration before it can be flying again. But the Obidalace is a nice little fitting spot here for a B-17, so you get an idea of what a B-17 is for the video. And if you haven't seen the Yankee Lady, I suggest you take a look at the Yankee Lady. I unfortunately don't have a model of the Yankee Lady to have on a stand here for the talk here on the B-17. So in 2012, me and two other online friends started a virtual flying group. And we actually called it the Virtual Yankee Air Force, since I actually loved the Yankee Air Museum aircraft paint that they had, like the Yankee Lady, their B-25 Yankee Warrior, and their C-47 at the time was Yankee Doodle Dandy. And believe it or not, it seems to be kind of funny that all their aircraft were Yankee, which is perfect because it's what won the North in the Civil War, so why not have it the Yankee Air Force or the Yankee Air Museum. For the video, unfortunately, the person who did the live streaming did not have the paints for all three of our aircraft. So you see them actually as, of course, the Yankee Lady is Yankee Lady. The B-25 was supposed to be Yankee, the B-25 for the video was supposed to be Yankee Warrior, and the C-47, of course, was supposed to be Yankee Doodle Dandy. The unfortunate fact is that you'll see mishap, and you'll see the C-47 that's on display in the Airborne Museum in France. So the model here, of course, is the Obidalace, which is a beautiful B-17. The 447th Bomb Group did actually start with B-17F models, and that's without the chin turret that you see under the 976, and also the cheek guns. Those were on in the F models, but the squadron, or I should say the group, was actually rather a neat group. They have, as you can see on the right, next to the landing gear there, I always liked the fuselage art that they had, and that was the two green stripes. Those are a dark green stripe. And actually those do signify a squadron within the bomb group. I forget which squadron it is, but I do know that one of the other squadrons, it actually has a very bright green stripes, and that would be the same too. And I always thought that was kind of neat. And when you go and look at Fuddy Duddy, it's neat to see that the crew door on the starboard side of the aircraft, or the right side of the aircraft, is actually in between those two stripes. So I actually kind of thought it was funny, you're walking in between the stripes. And that's just something of humor, at least to me. So this here is a B-17G. The one I will be flying in the video is also a G model. And I figured I'd do a little talk on the B-17 and the model that you're looking at here. So let's hop on over to the next aircraft. Okay, so this is the B-25 Mitchell medium bomber, built by North American. The B-25 is actually well known for being part of Jimmy Doolittle's Tokyo Raiders. 80 men who took part in a daring mission to bomb Japan after Pearl Harbor, which took place on December 7th, 1941. The 80 flyers and Jimmy Doolittle, who actually decided to go on the mission himself, which became one of the 80, decided that he needs to come up with an idea to help bomb Japan. And it took 107 days from start to finish on the mission. The B-25 that you see in front of you is actually a B-25J, which is a later model B-25, and it's actually painted in the Doolittle Raiders paint of Colonel Doolittle's plane, the lead aircraft. His co-pilot was Richard E. Cole. Richard E. Cole was actually the last living Doolittle Raider survivor. He was 103 years old. He was actually in the Air Force all the way till his retirement in the 1960s. And he did love the Air Force. I have heard stories that he loved doing nothing more than being with the Air Force and also the Raiders themselves. Doolittle, who also attended a couple of the reunions up until his passing in 1993, also very much loved the B-25. Doolittle was actually in command of the 8th Air Force with the B-17s sometime after the Doolittle raid, of course. And Cole and Doolittle did meet up every once in a while at a reunion until Doolittle's passing in '93. And Doolittle was actually promoted to 4-star general by Ronald Reagan in the 1980s, which was a very fitting tribute to Doolittle himself, and was actually rather a well-respected man, even without being a general alone. Just the fact that he was leading a daring mission on a B-25 off a aircraft carrier, let alone 16 Army B-25s that flew on that April 18th day. And so flying over Japan, and everyone has either heard or read the book or watched films on the 30 seconds over Tokyo. And that's what this B-25 in front of you is actually representing. Now the B-25 you'll see today will be the B-25 mishap. The B-25 was supposed to be painted up as for the simulator, was supposed to be Yankee Warrior, a B-25D. And actually it alone is actually a rather rare aircraft that the Yankee Air Museum owns. The B-25D that they have painted up as Yankee Warrior actually did fly combat missions in the 12th Air Force in the Mediterranean, and actually it's amazing that it has survived so many years. And usually you don't normally see combat surviving airplanes flying today. Good example would be like the Memphis Belle, or Shoo 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 Baby, or the Swoos, and those are just B-17s. There are, of course, like the Doolittle Raiders B-25s, none of them have survived. You can probably go to China and probably find some remnants of them, but some people have already done so over the years and have found parts of the surviving B-25s, at least in remnants. Of course, the most famous B-25 out of the Doolittle Raiders would be ship number 7, and that was the Ruptured Duck. And that was flown by Ted Lawson. Ted, who actually lost his leg while actually beaching his B-25 just off the coast. And Thatcher, who was actually a technical sergeant on the flight, was also the top turret gunner and the radio operator. Thatcher actually saved the crew once the aircraft was crashed into the ocean. There, the crew were badly hurt, and Thatcher went to land to save himself first, but then went back and saved the rest of the crew, pulling them out of the aircraft one at a time. Of course, Lawson was able to get out of the aircraft, but collapsed on the beach, as you saw in the film 30 Seconds Over Tokyo. You can also read his biography about how he survived his trip through China, and occupied China by the Japanese, and actually that's a rather interesting tale in itself. Of course, you can also hear the other audio biographies by the other crew who were alive during the 1980s, 90s, and the mid-2000s up until they were really down to the last dwindling numbers. In 2012, there were 4 surviving Doolittle Raiders for the 70th anniversary, and only 3 attended the reunion at the U.S. Air Force Museum in Ohio. And of course, the final toast was done, and that was with the Hennessy Cognac. Everyone is now able to see the famous bottle of Hennessy Cognac at the Air Force Museum, including all the goblets of the 80 men. Jimmy Doolittle, Cole, Ed Saylor, Thatcher, and Thomas C. Griffin, and so forth. After the raid, all the men were either separated to go to different squadrons, bomb groups, and so forth. Griffin, who was actually in Europe, Thomas C. Griffin, fought in the European theater. Thatcher, I forget where he went off to, and everyone knows where Dick Cole went off to. He went to deal with the Air Commandos in the CBI, that's the China, Burma, India Theater, and was a pilot of the C-47. And we're going to go off to the C-47 next. So there's a little rundown on the B-25, and let's hop on over to the last aircraft for this opening video for the virtual air show. The aircraft in front of you, I probably don't even have to even announce because it's probably so famous, but I will anyway, because some people probably won't know. But this is the Aragonia. It was actually the lead aircraft for the 439th Troop Carrier Squadron, and is on display in the museum in St. Mary-Glees. It's actually the Airborne Museum, and it actually even has its own special hangar. You can walk around the entire aircraft. There are some wonderful displays in the cases and also some of the tables, and including, I can't even believe I'm mentioning this, but the mannequins that are actually standing on the port side of the aircraft in the back, right by the stripes, including even General Eisenhower is even standing there, and with a wonderful mannequin. There's a great mannequin of Ike, including of all the jumpers that were going to be boarding this aircraft. So in the video, it's supposed to be painted up as Yankee Doodle Dandy, and unfortunately that is not the case due to an error from the live streamer who was handling the virtual air show. He was not handed the paint kits needed, and unfortunately that was the case. The Aragonia actually is probably, again, another one of the most famous C-47s of World War II, including the 439th alone. Another great airplane that you can see in representation of the 439th would be the C-47 Second Chance, which is actually in the American Air Power Museum on Long Island, and it's actually my favorite C-47 out of all of them. Yeah, I know there's That's All Brother, there's Whiskey 7, the two original C-47s that survived the D-Day invasion for World War II on June 6, 1944. And including there's I'm sure many other C-47s out there I'm not noting, but that's okay. I'm sure you'll all ridicule me later for it. I can always just hop over to my spreadsheet and see what other C-47s I can list, and other squadrons and other groups, and so forth, but that's okay. But I figured since in the video I can use the Aragonia, it's actually a nice paint. I like its nose art. It's kind of neat. It's a ship. And like all aircraft, they are, by their crews, or mainly the pilots, are called ships. Don't ask me why. I actually haven't even gotten that far in my informational packet. I'm still reading all my informational packets. I have so many packets I've read and looked into just for quick informational tidbits, but there's plenty more of information that I can always look into. Um, so without further ado, the C-47, again, another famous aircraft of World War II. They were built in the 1930s. They were used for civilian use first, like American Airlines, United, and all the other well-known brands before the war. And then in 1940, the government came in and said, look, we'd like to start using this aircraft for the government use. They did start coming in and taking it. And then in the 1930s, going back, when during production, they needed to note that they were going to be coming out with a cargo setting, which this one would have, and then later on during the war, it actually worked out really well that then they came out with the cargo setting. They could put in mass quantities like food parcels or jeeps or cannons or any other needs for the military, including like on D-Day, the paratroopers. So without a doubt, let's jump on into the virtual air show and let's watch a pretty neat display between a B-25, a B-17, and a C-47. It's an interesting three-ship formation with some pretty neat stuff in the center. So without a doubt, let's get to it. Enjoy. I just want to touch on one clear thing for the virtual air show before we start. It is going to be silent. There was sound. The music that was played at the time of recording, that was on August 11th, 2012, was used for that time, and per to YouTube, the music used is now claimed under copyright. So I hate to tell you that the sound is actually has been muted, but it's still a great little flight performance, thanks to me and two other friends of mine who are or were at the time flying with me of my V-17, and I have not talked to those two other people in a very long time. No, there was no disputes. It was just a mutual separation between the three of us. I had other obligations and commitments, and the other two also had obligations and commitments. It's called life and other opportunities. So hopefully, if they actually ever see this video, I hope they know that I actually kept it, and I do have the original audio for it. It's on a it's actually just kept on the side. So this one is actually muted. I'm sorry, but there is some pretty neat music in it. There's actually one. The opening song is actually "Bad to the Bone," and I forget the other track. But there's also the movie Memphis Belle sound in it as well. I believe it's actually for the landing, for the ending sequence, for when the B-17 in the movie's coming down with the one wheel and they're cranking it heavily to try and get the right landing gear down after it was shorted out because of German fighters in the 1990 movie for Memphis Belle. So the music is in that as well, but unfortunately the copywriter claim stuff has had me mute that, and so I am not able to use the original sound. I wish I could, unfortunately, but it is still a neat little performance that was done in 2012, and I think you all will enjoy it. Still, either way, you can always put on your own sound of the aircraft and also of the music if you wish. I'm sure a lot of you are able to do that who are a lot more computer savvy than I am. I'm sure I can do it. I just don't have the time to do it, and I'm just trying to get some old content up and see what people think of it. Again, hopefully you enjoy the show. Sorry it's muted, but I hope that you don't mind my little chats before anything really starts. So again, enjoy, and I think this will be quite fun. Thanks.